Hey, it's Johara. Welcome back to my channel. So this is gonna be a short video, because I could only find 3 examples that I know for a fact. I did this, but like it's when being asexual can be used as like an insult, or just I guess the butt of a joke. Um, I know I've never actually seen the show House. I don't know if it's called House or House MD. I think I've heard it both ways, but I'm not entirely sure what it's even about. But I've heard a lot of people complain about one specific episode where um somebody was like asexual or something, and then like the couple, but then I think from what I hear, the wife says you find out the wife's not asexual, and she was only pretending to make her husband feel better about not wanting sex or something, and then it all turns out to be a brain tumor anyways, which is a similar episode to a Grey's Anatomy two-parter. Technically, it's about the private practice people from the spinoff, but it was on Grey's Anatomy. This is like around the time Addison leaves to do her spinoff, so they take so people are familiar with like the new spinoff they're doing. They took Addison on Grey's Anatomy, and they had her drive to, where is private practice? LA, I think. I never finished private practice. It bored me very early on. I think I might have watched a little bit of season 2, and I think it lasted like 6 years. But anyways, moving on. So you see her go to LA so that I can introduce all the main characters that will be on private practice. Um, and then there was a patient that she was helping um, in it, and it actually has an actor I know. He played Archie on Once Upon a Time, Jiminy Cricket, but he apparently didn't want sex or anything, which is very asexual. Um, First thing you think of is asexual, if you know what asexual means. And then his wife was just very angry about it, and even ends up cheating on him, because like heaven forbid he didn't want to have sex. Like that's not the worst thing in the world. And then turns out it was a brain tumor. I get that that can happen with brain tumors, but until there's more awareness about asexuality, um, and there's first of all, there's hardly any representation to begin with, and second of all, 9 out of 10 representation I have seen on TV is either bad or it's just wrong. Like that's not even what like I know I've never read the Archie comics because I'm not a big fan of comics, but I have seen Riverdale. I love the first 4 seasons. After the time jump, it really goes downhill. I know a lot of people's like, oh, but seasons 3 and 4 weren't good either. I do not agree. I love seasons 3 and 4. Um, seasons 3 and 4 have 2 of my all-time favorite Riverdale episodes to ever happen. But anyways, moving on from that. And people were complaining, I guess at the beginning, before Jughead and Betty became very popular as a ship, about Jughead being asexual in the comics, and they erased that in the show. And then um, I but then every time I hear someone talk about the comics, and every time I see like snippets of the comics, even though they call him asexual and not aromantic, everything they describe is aromantic. They're like, oh, he doesn't want um to be with anyone. That doesn't sound like, yeah, that can be asexual, but that's also aromantic, and that's never even brought up. I feel like asexual is more known than aromantic, and sometimes they'll be like, oh, they're asexual, but then go on and describe what aromantic means, not what asexual means. And I've seen that on other things where it's like they say they're asexual, but then they go on to explain aromantic. Like, yes, they can be aro-ace, but they never once bring up aromantic. Like, that's not even a part of it. Because you can be asexual and still want romance, and just because you're asexual doesn't mean you don't have sex at all. Like that, I prefer that. Like I am disgusted by sex. I mean, I don't care if y'all do it. I'm not like against y'all having sex. It's just a personal thing. Like I don't want it, but being asexual doesn't mean they just don't have sex, like that can be a part of it, but it just means that you have little to no sexual attraction, but you can like sex or feel indifferent towards it and be willing to do it with your partner. So technically, even if Jughead was asexual, like it's not because he obviously wants it and stuff. Um, but in the show, he technically could be asexual and just like sex or be indifferent towards it for Betty. Um, but so yeah, so I have a lot. So I feel like yes, it's okay to like do that every so often because that can be a side effect of some brain tumors. I get that, especially if you're doing a doctor show like Grey's Anatomy, and I don't know if House is a doctor show. I'm not entirely sure what the show is actually about. I just know of the show because of that one episode. I've heard a lot of people complain about it. But moving on. But so I get using that sometimes to show side effects of certain tumors, as long as it's like a doctor show, because like obviously you're gonna see all these different types of tumors, all these different types of side effects. But um, I don't think it's a good idea to have things like that while there's still so little representation and half of it's not even good. Like, I think from what I can think of out of the shows I have seen, so I'm not saying these are the only good representations out there. I'm just saying these are the ones that I have seen. Um, are Heartstopper, because that's the best Arrow Ace representation I've ever seen, and Shadowhunters because of the Raphael storyline. I really liked it, and they he wanted romance. He just didn't want the sex part, which is very asexual of him, and I felt like the storyline itself was very good. I don't know if because I never hear anyone bring it up, but I actually like that representation. I felt like it was done great. Um, but yeah, and so it just bothers me because it's like we don't have enough representation to be doing stuff like that because people are thinking that, oh, if you don't want sex, you must have a brain tumor because of representation like that. If we had enough, because there's always going to be bad representation, okay, for anything, for trans and non-binary and lesbian and gay, and honestly, when they first started having those things on TV, it was bad. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever watched TV show Soap. I did a video about the gay character on there um on this channel at one point, and he is in my top 3 favorite characters, and he's actually the first canon gay character that's ever appeared on TV. I even looked it up because I was curious one time because it was in the 70s, and I looked up who was the first gay character on TV, and it said Jody Dallas, who was the character from Soap, and um, I love his character. He's amazing. He's also one of my mom's favorite characters, and my 13-year sister's watching the show for the first time with me as I'm rewatching. We're still very early on. Peter hasn't even died yet, so we're still very early on in season 1. But I asked her who her favorite character was so far, and she said it's Jody as well. He's an amazing character, but his representation, not that great. His sexuality becomes a butt of joke sometimes, and they do have serious moments where where it's good representation, like, but it's few and far between. Like the scene when Jody convinces like talks to his brother Danny, and Danny always made little things when someone called him a fruit, because that's what they called gay people back in the day, and he would be like, "My brother's not a fruit; he's a comedian," and blah blah blah, because he did not want to accept it. And then they had a serious talk, and it got very real. And I feel like that scene was actually done really well for its time period, but a lot of the representation on that show is not good. But you also have to remember this is the first gay character TV has ever done, and this is in the 70s. So the fact that, so I still think his role was very important because if he didn't show up, then future gay characters wouldn't have either. He set the pavement for gay characters in the future to have good representation. And it all started with Jody Dallas. And I feel like, yeah, his representation wasn't necessarily good, but his character was very, very important. and I feel like that's how it's done with everything. Like when trans characters were first introduced, or non-binary characters, I'm sure. Um, and but like, so I just think that representation, when they first start representing a sexuality, it's always bad at first. But I feel like there's getting to be more asexual representation, so we should start be able to get better representation than the ones we get. Um, and yeah, I went very off topic in this video. But that's my little rant. And um, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever seen what the first like trans character, the first non-binary character, or the first lesbian character, but I'm sure they weren't handled that great either. I do know Tara and Willow and Buffy was pretty early on when they still didn't have lesbians on very much. I know they're not like the first lesbian couple, I'm pretty sure, but that was like the late 90s, and I feel like on there it was handled pretty okay. I don't really remember any. I mean, other than the fact that they wouldn't let them kiss until the middle of season 5, despite Tara being introduced in the middle of season 4. Um, and I know season 6 was kind of they used magic in season 6 to be like a drug addiction for Willow, and they kind of did that in season 4 using the magic, because Willow and Tara are witches. For those of you that have not seen Buffy, um, they kind of used magic as a metaphor for sex in season 4 with the two of them. When the two of them were alone doing magic, like it got pretty tense and stuff. And then they did the same thing in season 6. They used magic as a metaphor of her drug addiction, because that's basically what she was having. um so yeah. But anyways, moving on. My point is that like I said, I don't know the first trans or non-binary character ever done, but I'm sure those weren't done well. But the fact that they were done at all makes their characters important. I know non-binary isn't as seen, kind of like asexuals, but I'm seeing it more. So I'm hoping asexuals will be done more too. So we shall see. Um, oh, one more thing. Monster High, the TV show, has done great Arrow Ace representation so far. They have like literally everything. If you want a show that has literally everything, whether it's size or uh, races or sexualities, like this show, it's on season 2, I think. I'm a bit behind because I don't have access to Hulu at the moment, and that's where the new episodes come. But Deuce is supposed to be Arrow Ace. I'm not sure if they've, like I said, I'm a bit behind, and I've only watched the show once all the way through. So when I do get Hulu back, I'm gonna rewatch all of it before I watch the new episodes. So I don't know if they've done the storyline yet, but I know it's Deuce is supposed to be Arrow Ace. They also have Frankie and Cleo together. Frankie is non-binary. They have Deuce has two moms. Um, they have and also most animated features that I see don't have bigger characters. A lot of times they have them like really skinny stuff, especially the women. And but here has uh and they've actually gotten some hate. I've seen people hate on the way that some of these characters look. I'm like, oh my gosh, they look beautiful. What are you talking about? But yeah, so they have normal sizes. They have different races and sexualities, and yeah. So definitely check out this show. It has amazing representation so far, and it's doing it perfectly. They also have Twyla is autistic, and that was done perfectly. They're introducing, I don't think she's been introduced yet, but a character with Down syndrome, and oh my gosh, the amount of representation and the way that it's done is so beautiful. There's even Gulia. There was a new episode that came out recently with Gula having anxiety. Gulia having anxiety. I'm gonna do an entire video once I catch up on Monster High on this representation, so I'm gonna stop there. But I plan to do, once I catch up on the show, I plan to do a video based on the representation, and jot down notes to explain why the representation on all of this is just so good. And yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up introducing a trans character at this point, because they have literally everything else. So definitely watch the show if you want real representation that's done right. But anyways, moving on. Last point I wanted to make, and for the subject of this video, is so um I have been obsessed with Brooklyn Nine-Nine lately. Um, a lot of times whenever I come up with a new show that I absolutely love, I watch it a lot. I become very obsessive. I become and yeah. Um, the last shows that I know I love, I Zombies one of my favorite shows. The last show that I played as much as I'm playing Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now is probably when Shadow and Bone season 2 came out. Um, but um, I love it. I actually watched it for the first time early this year. I think it was pretty early this year, and I'm currently rewatching it. I'm on season 3. I'm watching it for the fourth time, and I only introduced it this year. And this is the only show. Like, don't get me wrong, I like comedies. Like every so often, I want to get rid of my fantasy and mystery and drama stuff for something more fun loving that's like not too serious. I can just relax and have a laugh with. Not very often because I do prefer fantasy and horror and mystery and stuff like that. But this is as much as I love shows like Friends. I love Friends. I love that '70s show. I love How I Met Your Mother. Those are the only ones I can think of off the top of my head at the moment. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the only show that's like that. That's a half-hour comedy. Um, that I would put high up on my list of favorite shows. Like, I have become obsessed with it, and even though, like I said, I love these other shows, these other comedy shows, but not, they were never any of my favorite TV shows because it's not my type of genre. But I'm obsessed with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But there was one thing that bothered me. I actually watched the episode recently, which made me come up with the idea for this video. But there was an episode where Holt wanted his detectives to solve this riddle. And Amy's very intelligent, and Terry's pretty smart too, and they thought they would uh, had better shot of figuring it out than Gina and Rosa, who aren't. I mean, they're smart. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they're dumb or anything. They're pretty smart. But they're not as intellectual as Amy and Terry, especially Amy. Like her and Holt are the smartest characters by far. Um, but so it ended up as some sort of competition because Rosa and Gina they didn't really care about the riddle itself, but first of all they wanted the prize, which was Beyonce tickets, but they also wanted to prove to Amy and Terry that they could solve the riddle first. Um, so yeah, so it ended up in this big competition, and but no one found out the riddle. But Gina solves the mystery of why Holt was so obsessed with them doing this. Gina and Rosa solved it about how they why Holt wanted this riddle solved is because he could never solve it, and his old captain. He was meeting with his old captain, and he wanted to finally be able to say, "Hey, I solved your riddle from like 10, 20 years ago." So yeah, and and then at the end of the episode, Gina was insulting them because she insults everybody, especially Amy. She's not always the nicest person, and she gets on my nerves sometimes because the way she treats Amy is just not okay. But that's a separate note. But she called Amy and Terry asexual nerds, and it just gives me the ick because it's meant to be as an insult, like being asexual or um, you know, first of all, I don't think being a nerd is an insult. Anyways, I am a nerd and I'm a proud nerd. But the asexual part bothers me more because it's like, it's not bad to be asexual. It's not bad to want to have sex. I know one thing that gives me the biggest ick on Grey's Anatomy. I'm not gonna go into it very much because I do want to make a whole separate video about it because it just bothers me to no end. And that's when everyone found out that April was a virgin on Grey's Anatomy, and they all were kind of making fun of her. And then Christina made a comment to Alex about go defile her because apparently it's such a bad thing to be in. How old was April? She was a resident and had to go through med school, so she was probably at least in her mid to late 20s, and I guess is a bad thing to be because she's not asexual, but it's okay to want to wait until marriage if that's what you believe. Like I'm not Catholic, I'm not religious at all, but like if she believes that she should wait till marriage to have sex, fine, who cares, right? Um, but yeah. So that's just I'm not like I said I'm not gonna get into it because that's like the main thing. But I think there was a few other times where they kind of made fun of her being a virgin, and I don't like it. Like, it's not bad to be a virgin, whether it's because you want to wait until you meet the right person, want to wait till marriage, want to wait until for whatever reason, or even if you're asexual and just ew, like, all of it's valid. And I guess it just gives me a huge ick. But anyways, thank you for watching my video. Please like and subscribe and comment, and I will chat with you guys below. Until next time.